Now, renowned human rights lawyer Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, on Wednesday said it was illegal for the national oil company, the Nigerian National Company Limited, NNPCL, to determine prices of petrol after deregulation. In a statement, Falana noted that the action of NNPCL in trying to fix prices violates Section 205 of the Petroleum Industry Act. According to him, the market has been deregulated, meaning that petrol prices are now determined by market forces rather than by the government or NNPC Limited. Additionally, the exchange rate plays a significant role in influencing these prices. Chief Executive Officer of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, joins us now to discuss the role of NNPC Limited in petrol pricing, impact on industry and the people, and also how to curtail the spiral effect. Good afternoon and welcome to Newsday.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Good afternoon, Cynthia. Good afternoon, Omobolanle.
Let's begin the conversation by getting your response to the comment of the senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, saying that it is not in the jurisdiction of the NNPC Limited to fix the price of petrol.
Well, my understanding of the situation is that the NNPC was not fixing prices. The NNPC was only intervening to ensure that the citizens are not exposed to the full elements of market forces or the commercial pricing of petroleum products. If any marketer wants to import or buy anywhere and sell, I don't think there is anything. The NNPC is not stopping anybody. But the truth of the matter is that the economics of the business will not make it reasonable for any investor to go and import or produce or buy elsewhere, because you'll not be able to sell. Because for social reasons, the government is intervening through the NNPC to ensure that the prices at the pumps are not fully reflective of what the market price is. If the NNPC was not intervening, the prices will be going to around 1,000 to 1,003, which is what, nobody wants to see. Even the learned senior advocate is also not, I'm not sure he'll be happy to see a situation where we allow for full deregulation and full exposure of the citizens to the elements of the market. So I think it is from that social perspective that the NNPC and the government has come in to say, okay, in order to protect the citizens from further hardship and all of that, the NNPC should come in between the providers and the market to ensure that at least there is still some element of subsidy in the system. So that is what has happened. There is nothing illegal about that. The NNPC is not stopping anybody from opening filling stations and selling at whatever price they wish to sell. But the economics of it will not make it, sensible, for anybody to go and undertake that kind of investment. For me, that is the position.
All right, Dr. Yusuf. Now, how do you respond to claims that NNPCL's pricing decisions are influenced more by political considerations than by market forces?
Well, you know what the social situation is. The economic reform so far has turned out to be socially very costly. The social cost of the reform has been extremely high, far higher than what many of us expected. And you can feel the pains of the people. The social costs arising from the fuel subsidy removal initially, and the social costs arising from the depreciation in the exchange rate. The pressure on the citizens has been enormous. So that is why, in my view, the government has decided to intervene through the NNPC, which makes sense. Because economic management, at the end of the day, is about human beings. And when the social cost of reforms is getting unbearable, the government has a responsibility to intervene. And that is the basis of the intervention of the NNPC, which I think makes sense. Because whatever you are doing about any reform, there's a limit to which you can allow the citizens to be subjected to the consequences of these market forces. So it makes sense. So that, for me, is why I think the NNPC is involved. But what we should worry about is the transparency of the involvement, the integrity of the involvement, and to ensure that we don't also disrupt the system unduly, and to also ensure that we encourage a lot more of domestic production of these products. That, for me, I think will serve the economy much better, because there is a whole lot of benefits to domestic production. If you are talking of competition, it will be unfair to be talking of imported products competing with domestically produced items.
If I may come in here, Dr. Muda Yusuf, isn't that the situation now?
Can be very challenging.
If you can hear me, Dr.
All of
Yusuf.
this needs to be taken into account.
You just mentioned the fact that the domestic product should compete favorably with the imported ones. But we know that the Dangote petrol isn't imported, which is why even the senior advocate is placing a question mark on the 950 naira per litre tag that the NNPC Limited has put PMS at. He's saying that this, product is not imported, and so it is not, prone to charges like tax, and all manner of foreign exchange costs, jetty depot fees, storage fees, and all of that. And so there is a big question mark as to the factors or the criteria that NNPCL looked at or considered to fix the price at 950 naira per litre.
No, the point is, this is economics. This is not law. We need to look at all the factors that are going into the pricing. For instance, we are talking about crude oil price. The batch of production that NNPC is taking off from Dangote now, the crudes were imported. They were imported in dollars. We need to factor in the cost of that. We need to factor in the cost of operations. We need to factor in the cost of capital, cost of logistics. So we need to put all those costs there. The Dangote refinery is a business entity. There are shareholders, there are creditors, and all of that. So whatever they are producing has to be so that the cost will be recovered, and there will be margin for those who have invested in the business. And if you leave it entirely for the price to be determined by that, it will be much higher than even the 950. Just as the landing cost of imported items is far more than 1,000 naira. It's about 1,002. So the point I was making about competition is that you cannot be talking of competition between a domestic producer and something that is imported, because the playing field is not the same thing. The circumstances are not the same. So before anybody can make any pronouncement as to whether the price is justified or not, you must be privy to all the numbers, all the figures, the costing, everything that has gone into the production process. It's not something you just sit down and say because it is produced locally, it should be cheaper and all of that. You need to look at the numbers.
All right, Dr. Yusuf. Now let's talk about renewable energy at the moment. What role do you see for renewable energy in Nigeria's future energy mix in terms of how it might affect NNPCL's long-term pricing strategies?
Well, I think we need to do more with respect to renewable energy. Yes, globally, there is a transition. There is a decarbonization agenda and all of that, moving away from fossil fuel and all of that. But before we can achieve that full transition, it will take some time. So in the meantime, there is room for fossil fuel, both in Nigeria and other parts of the world. But in the light of the increasing pressure of energy prices on the citizens and on businesses, there's a need for us to come up with a very robust package of incentives, fiscal incentives, to be able to make renewable energy cheaper, to be able to make it more accessible to everybody. Whether we are talking about the citizens, we are talking about transporters, we are talking about industrialists. You need a package of incentives. If possible, we should even be subsidizing those equipment. So my position is that, yes, already the government, I understand, has waived the import duty on solar panels. But we should go beyond that. We should look at the total package of what can deliver renewable energy solutions and remove all forms of taxes, all forms of levies, all forms of import duty on them, so that the citizens can have options. The cost of conversion of vehicle from PMS to CNG and all of that, the cost is still too high. We need to make it more accessible. We need to, liberalize access, remove all those approvals that government has put in place before you can access those things. Remove all those bureaucracy, all those bottlenecks, and possibly even subsidize those kits. Because if it is easy for citizens to move away from the use of petrol generators, diesel generators, to other form of energy, the citizens will move, they will migrate. If it is very cheap and accessible, for citizens to move away their vehicles from the use of petrol into CNG or to LPG, they will migrate easily, especially in the light of the current prices of these petroleum products. But we need to make it very easy. And I think that is what should happen. If it is easy for the city to move away, the complaints will be less. The pressure of transportation costs on the citizens will be much less. The pressure of, on SMEs who are using all these petrol generators, the pressure will be less. So as part of the totality of the strategy in this reform is to create a seamless transition, something that is very cost-effective, possibly subsidized, so that both inverters, batteries, solar panels, all the things that you need to transit into renewable energy solution, we should make it very easy. So as a policy proposition, I think that is what we should be doing. It doesn't take anything away from whether we are still investing in fossil fuel or what. We can still continue that. If you can't sell it locally, there's market globally for it. But the citizens deserve a choice in the light of what is happening.
I would like to stay a bit more on the CNG matter, which you just touched on, especially looking at some concerns that have been raised concerning it. Some Nigerians are skeptical about the lack of continuity when it comes to government policies. Yes, we know that the Tinubu administration is all about transitioning to CNG, despite, some of the challenges, like the one you just touched on, the funds, the pricing when it comes to transitioning. But also important is, one important concern is the fact that continuity in government is not guaranteed in Nigeria. Another government comes in and then he says, well, there's no need for CNG vehicles or transitioning anymore. Do you see that concern, or do you align with that concern being raised by some Nigerians?
No. I don't align with that concern. Once there is a traction on that, it will take root firmly. The moment the citizens can find it easy to transit or transition into the use of CNG, the moment we have charging points all over the country, because one thing I know about this country is that once there is a demand, there will be a supply response, because we are very enterprising people. So we need to create that demand for it. And the way to create the demand is to make it very cheap for more citizens to transit into use of CNG. Once we gain enough momentum, nobody can stop it. No policy can reverse it. So what we need to do is just to remove all those barriers so that people can have those choices of energy solutions, whether for their generators, whether for their vehicles, whether for tricycles. That should happen. Once we build the momentum, there is nobody that can change it. But we need to drive this process with the right kind of incentives. And I must repeat, we should remove bureaucratic bottlenecks. Once government rolls out an incentives, the bureaucrats put a lot of bottlenecks and hurdles in the name of guidelines. This thing doesn't require any guidelines. Let people who can import, let them import directly. Let us remove all these approvals from Office of the Special Advisor on Energy, Ministry of Finance. Let us remove all those hurdles. Let the thing land at the port. Let the customs inspect. If the finance or energy people want to inspect, let them come to the port to ensure that these things are truly CNG vehicles and things like that.
Well said, Dr. Yusuf.
More people can migrate into it.
Absolutely. Now, as we begin to round up with you, how do you assess Nigeria's readiness in terms of our infrastructure being ready to support a fully deregulated petroleum market? And what key investments do you think need to be in place for this to happen?
No, for the deregulation, first, let me say that we already have some components of petroleum products that have been fully deregulated. The jet fuel, which we call aviation fuel, has been fully deregulated. And I think we are doing well with that. Diesel, which we call AGO, has been fully deregulated. Kerosene has been fully deregulated. The only one we are struggling with now is petrol. And the challenge is that we cannot quickly deregulate it because we are in an economy where we don't have sufficient investment in public transportation. Over 95% of movement of goods and human beings in the country is still by road. So that is why we have to be careful at the rate at which we want to deregulate the PMS. We need to be sensitive to the social conditions, to the poverty situations, and even to the political implications of quickly rushing to deregulate it, because the pressure on the citizens is enormous. So that is why we need to move gradually in terms of this complete deregulation of the PMS. Because of the pressure on the people, we need to simultaneously create these alternatives that we are talking about. We need to engage the government at all levels to invest more in public transportation that will be heavily subsidized. These are the things that we need to do. And we need to look at the tariffs on buses. We need to reduce the import duty on buses. Anything that's 18-seater and above, let us reduce the duty or even eliminate the duty completely so that companies can buy more staff buses, state government can buy more buses, the federal government can buy more buses, and even private investors. These are the measures we can put in place simultaneously. And that is what will enable us to gradually exit, from this subsidy thing and fully deregulate. So these are the measures that need to accompany the deregulation process in order to minimize the shocks and the pains and the pressure on the citizens.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for sharing your thoughts with us on this issue. Dr. Muda Yusuf is the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Private Promotion, or rather Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. Thank you for your time.